Marikina Representative Stella Quimbo says the country needs a balanced response to help revive the economy as the Philippines faces its worst economic downturn ever. What other measures can help restart the financial sector? Let's find out from Congresswoman Quimbo. She joins us now live on The Final Word. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me, Rico. Good evening.
So the BICAM meetings start tomorrow. Do you think both the House, the lower house and the Senate will have differences of opinion on trying to reconcile the bill?
Well, Rico, I think there's general agreement on many things. The main difference between the two versions is the amount. The Senate proposed 140 billion pesos, while the House proposed 162 billion. And the main difference, Rico, is that we passed Bayanihan 2 a few days later. By the time the Senate approved their version of Bayanihan 2, the MECQ had not yet been restored in the NCR.
But I'm sure a lot of the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises and a lot of Filipinos are hoping that your version will be passed because every billion counts, Congresswoman.
Absolutely. I mean, last week when the economic managers announced the Q2 GDP contraction, which is the highest ever contraction for a single quarter, which is minus 16.5%. And then they recomputed their forecast for GDP for the whole year, which went from minus 3.5 to minus 5.5% for the whole year. And so those 2 additional percentage points means an additional of 400 billion pesos in economic losses. So we're now looking at 2.4 trillion pesos in losses for the entire year. So that's the amount of damage that an economic stimulus package needs to avert. Right? As you had just said, every single peso counts.
That is massive in the trillions of pesos, Congresswoman. And I'm sure, like yourself and other senators, whether it be 140 or 162 billion pesos is not enough to jumpstart this economy. That's why you're proposing this bill called Arise, wherein over 3 years, more than 1 trillion pesos will be used to pump prime the economy.
Yes, that's right, Rico. So we actually need the Bayanihan 3. Well, we are not yet done passing Bayanihan 2 as a law, but clearly we need the Bayanihan 3. But what I'm saying, Rico, is that since the Congress had already approved on third and final reading the Arise bill last June 4, then we might as well consider the Arise bill or parts of it as Bayanihan 3. And in fact, Bayanihan 2 already draws a lot of provisions from Arise. So anyway, since the economic managers had already signed off on certain provisions of the Arise bill, we might as well adopt those and additional ones for a third stimulus package.
So what are you saying, Congresswoman? During this BICAM meeting, we could see a bigger amount, more than 162 billion pesos approved by both, or we could see the Bayanihan 3 or the Arise bill coming in maybe towards the end of the year or early next year?
You know, I was just like moving 2 steps ahead, Rico. Clearly, for this week, what we need to do is approve Bayanihan 2, and hopefully that would be at 162, which is the bigger version rather than the 140 of the Senate. But then what I'm saying is that's really not enough, Rico. We need to think about Bayanihan 3 as soon as we can get started on this. But instead of passing a new bill, what I think can be done is to consider Arise, which is already approved by the Congress last June.
But the big question is, Congresswoman, the president says we're running out of cash. We don't have any more money to help the Filipino people, especially if this whole pandemic continues maybe until the end of the year or next year. So where are we likely to see this large amount of money coming from?
So right now we've been borrowing funds, and of course you know that our credit rating had been upgraded, and so now is the best time to use an upgraded credit rating. It's not only a rainy day; it's a very stormy day, and so the last time I checked, I think we've
Yeah.
loaned about 1.7 trillion pesos.
But
But I guess the problem here really is there's so much uncertainty because of
right.
the pandemic.
But
So
but Congresswoman, we just can't keep on borrowing. That means your child and their children will continue to pay for this debt for generations to come. Shouldn't we just unload some of our government assets or even sell some prime properties of the Philippine government? For example, embassies that sit on prime real estate overseas to be able to make up for the shortfall?
I don't think we need to do that at this point. The fact that our credit rating is good means that we are credit worthy, meaning we've been assessed by independent agencies that we have the ability to pay back loans that we take out, and that's primarily because we have good macroeconomic fundamentals, and so we should leverage on that. Use our loans properly. One way to use loans properly is precisely to have a coherent economic stimulus package where guidelines could be put in place so that we can make sure that whatever funds we put into an economic stimulus package would be used productively.
Get that approved, Congresswoman. The Filipino people need the money right now to help them through this pandemic. Thank you so much for joining us, Congresswoman Stella Quimbo.